Hey everyone, my name's Heather Gray. I'm at choosetohaveitall.com and I'm just jumping on a quick spontaneous live today. I apologize to people who I said I would give advance notice to and start setting out announcements when I was going to go live. This was a little bit of a spontaneous choice for me. I was in the middle of writing a blog post when I kind of thought that it made more sense to maybe talk about it live and then add the blog post. So here's the video, and then you'll probably see a blog following later in the week. But in any case, if you haven't met me yet, my name's Heather Gray. I'm over at choosetohaveitall.com, and I'm a personal development coach working with people to help them have their big lives. I've been writing a lot about it and talking a lot about it. And one of the things that's been happening lately is I keep getting the same question. So it's this idea that we tell people to just go after what they want and to set a goal and to break it down into steps. And we never actually talk to people about what happens when you don't know what the heck it is you want to do, or you actually don't have a specific goal. You know you want your life to be better, or you know you want your work to be better, but you're not quite sure what that looks like, what it is you really want to go after, and what your true passion is. And I think people are embarrassed or hesitant or shy in some ways to say out loud that they don't know what they're passionate about, because I think the assumption is we should all instantly know what we're passionate about. But the truth is life gets in the way. Our schedules, the responsibilities called upon us, our families, our relationships, our jobs, all of the things that we do on a regular everyday kind of can get in the way sometimes of what it is we really want to be doing if we could only choose differently. So I think a lot of times when people hear like, go after your big life, just go and get it, and they don't know what it is they want, they don't feel like people are speaking to them, or they feel like, wow, that must just mean that I'm happy doing what I want to be doing and I don't need to make any changes. I just don't think that's true. People just haven't figured out a way to ask, how do you find your passion, and what happens if you don't know what your passion is. So I wanted to jump on today to talk to you a little bit about that, because first of all, it's far more common than you think. It's actually one of the leading questions I get asked when people start with me, is to say, I know I want my life to be different, but I can't tell you how. Is that something that you do? Can you help me figure it out? And it's absolutely something I do. And it's a regular part of the work that I offer folks. And it usually starts with this idea of giving people permission to have a dream. It's not the language that we hear a lot, right? That's not the way people are usually spoken to when they're talking about their lives or when they're talking about their dreams. Of course, everyone should have permission to dream big and go after their big lives, but nobody really talks about how, and nobody says, just go out and do that thing you want to do, even if you don't know how to do it. Where I go with this is I tell people that that first step, you have to give yourself permission to have a goal, to have a dream, to have something that might be a little bit outside the box or outside your regular everyday. And when people don't know what it is they want, the first thing that I ask them is, can you think of something that you wanted to do at one point in time, or you wanted to try, or you thought it would be neat to do, and either you or somebody else you know talked you out of it? And sometimes we talk ourselves out of goals and passions before we even ever land on actually having them. You know, one of the examples I can think of in my own life is having done therapy for so long, things like the holidays and Mother's Day, Father's Day, I always kind of get clients in who say, how the heck can I find a Mother's Day card for moms who have never been there, or a father who never showed up? And I always thought it would be a fun thing to write Hallmark cards for people with dysfunctional families whose lives don't reflect the Hallmark aisle. And I never really followed through on that idea, because I told myself immediately that's kind of dumb. Who wants to send a card that acknowledges a broken or fragmented relationship? And I never followed up on it. But if I count the number of times I've had that idea, it's probably every single time when clients are starting to talk to me at these pivotal pivotal holiday points about how hard it is to find the right gift or the right message when relationships don't reflect what they see. So I immediately had this idea. I'd probably be good at it, but I talked myself out of it 1,000 times. What types of ideas have you thought about? What kinds of things do you think like just randomly fall across your mind and you quickly let them go? Because that's usually where a good starting spot is. To think about, what could I just find myself talking about aimlessly? What is it, the thing that I keep going back to? Or every time there's an article or a snippet of video on something in my Facebook feed or my social media feed, do I automatically click on because I want to read more? What types of books do I tend to read? What are the things that I usually have conversations about? The television shows you watch. The different forms of media that you take in are really good indicators sometimes of the things that interest you. Likewise, if you're always hearing about people doing something and you think to yourself, that would be a really great thing to do, or wow, I wish I could, or I never could, those types of thoughts that immediately censor what you think you could do or couldn't do usually indicate a passion or a potential passion or an interest that you haven't given yourself permission to explore. You do it one of two ways. One is you kind of censor it and you cut it off at the pass. You see immediate obstacles to getting that goal, to getting that vision. You create an automatic story of I can't, it probably isn't possible. You believe that story and you move on. Otherwise, the little hater in your head says, well, maybe someone else is already doing it, or that's a dumb passion to have, or that would be a stupid interest. And it's simply looking at the things and the times in your life where you've had an idea, a thought, an interest, and you've stopped. And you haven't pursued it. You haven't been curious about it. Or if you've had a question about something and you've wanted to learn more, but you stop at the question. You know, one of the examples I give people sometimes is fitness, right? Because we're all trying, or some people are trying to get fit, to lose weight, but going to the gym and going aimlessly on a treadmill doesn't interest them. Or they're not looking to be super restrictive with their diet, so they kind of throw up their hands and say, this isn't for me. Rather than looking at what other kinds of exercises are there. There's people doing everything from belly dancing to break dancing to gymnastics to ballet, bar, stretching, yoga, Pilates. There's so many different forms of exercise, but sometimes our brain is only trained to go to that one specific one that we don't ever really recognize that sometimes like our idea, the thing that lights us up, the thing that cares about us, like that, like we care the most about, might not be the regular everyday going to the gym and getting on a treadmill. It might be like, for me, for example, I joined an MMA gym several years ago and I started boxing in the mornings, and that's not traditional and that's not typical, and I hated the gym. If I just simply didn't go to the gym because I didn't like that traditional way that people were doing it, I may never have found a new interest in a new thing that I really do enjoy doing. And that's what's happening, is usually there's some form of censoring happening. You're either not allowing yourself to explore an interest, you're telling yourself you can't, or you're stopping at an obstacle. And the biggest thing about finding your passion and getting clarity on your goals is to be curious, to give yourself permission to not know, but to be willing to find out. Because it's in the curiosity and in the exploration that you'll start to be able to find out whether or not this is something that actually excites you. So many times people don't want to move until they have all the answers. It's either they want to feel fully confident in what they're doing, or they want to know exactly how to do every single step. And if they don't know how to do every single step, they don't take a movement. So much about finding passion and the things we care about are just being willing to throw something on the wall and see if it sticks. So if you think that you have a message to share, what happens when you just spontaneously start sharing it? when you start talking about it, when you start looking for groups of people that care about the same thing. You know, I remember several years ago when I was working in residential care, there was a group of kids I worked with and they liked the Magic card games. And I think it was some kind of role-playing Dungeons and Dragons like game. I never knew about it and I didn't have a lot of interest in it. But they ended up finding groups of other kids across the country online that loved this game. And they built relationships and connections and friendships with people who shared this passion. And then years later, when I was entering the entrepreneurial space, I saw that somebody, not that I had known, but just some random person, absolutely had created an online business about having a passion for these Magic games. I had no idea about it, but somebody took their passion and turned it into a business. And that's the thing, is that it's about figuring out what it is that lights you up. What is the thing that you could just keep talking about and not get bored, keep answering questions, keep being interested, and see what happens next. So much of it is just about giving yourself permission to daydream, to explore, to be curious, to not know, to go looking for the answer, to find something else. Recently, I was watching this show, now you're all going to get in on my guilty pleasures, but I was watching this show on HGTV called Flea Market Flip, and it's this idea where people go and they buy trash and unwanted, articles that other people have given away, and they've kind of upselled them and up-leveled them a little bit. They rehab them and they turn them into something fantastic, and then they sell them for a profit. And I found myself going, I wouldn't know how to remove stain from a furniture or cut legs off of a table to make it shorter and still keep the proportions for the table making sense. I wouldn't know how to do any of that. And the reality is I don't know that I'm actually somebody who's budding to have a passion in furniture rehab, but if I was, I can't sit in my living room and ask the question. I have to find out the answer. And you go to good old Google and you say, how do you remove furniture stain? How do you remove legs from a table? How do you resize a table? And people who've cared about this before you, people who have been curious about this before you got curious about it, have probably already found the answer and have gotten really super excited and passionate about sharing that answer. So it's about tuning into your curiosity, paying attention to all of the things that you've ruled out over time, or the times that you've censored yourself from actually wanting it, and giving yourself permission to find out. Talking to people, asking them, for example, what they think you'd be good at. When I was revamping my business and I was moving away from a solely mental health therapy private practice and wanted to move into personal development coaching, there's so many people in the online space doing it. I had no real idea what I was going to do with it until somebody asked me, well, what's the thing you keep repeating to people in your office? What's the thing you keep talking about? What's the thing you keep writing about? And two things keep coming up regularly. Communication is one. How do you say the hard things? How do you have the hard conversations? How do you tell people what you want them to think? How do you reduce conflict in your interpersonal relationships? And then the other piece is, how do you choose happiness? Because I absolutely, positively believe that happiness is a choice and that we can all have it, but we have to choose it. And the reflection of our decisions in our lives represents and equates how happy we're going to be living our lives. So those two ideas were the things that I was always finding myself talking about. Those are the things that I could talk about and answer questions about endlessly. So that's what I built my business on. I didn't know right away. And if I waited to know the answer, I may never have started the business. I just took a step. I just got curious, willing to start something new, willing to ask the question and then move. The next thing that I see happen a lot, particularly as more and more of people who are following me are also entrepreneurs in the online space, is this automatic assumption for people that our passions and our interests have to turn into a business. And I actually do think that pretty much any interest or passion we have can be turned into a business. I've just seen so many random niche markets develop over time that I'd be hard pressed to be convinced that something can't be developed. But I think so many times people stop at pursuing the passion and stop at the interest because they don't know how they'd sell it, or they don't know who would be interested in buying it, or they put all these business questions on top of it. They never find the passion because they've gone right to the business side rather than first exploring the interest and the subject matter and learning and seeing if anyone's already developed a business around it, talking to people, having conversations, going to Google and saying, who else is talking about this? How are they talking about it? But so often we censor our passions and our interests if we're looking for the next job, or if we're identifying as entrepreneurs. We tell ourselves we can't have something because we don't have all the answers, or we have no idea how we'd be able to create a business plan out of it, so we move on, rather than just starting and getting back to that core part where it's a passion, where it's an interest, and seeing what happens when you give energy and oxygen to the thing you care about. Because as soon as we start going away from the thing we care about, because we've added all these caveats and conditions and rules to it, we've lost sight of our passion, and then we go and tell people we can't find it, when in fact we've just censored it away, we've covered it up in dirt, and we're hiding it, rather than putting it out center, putting it under a spotlight, and being curious about what happens next. This comes down to a couple of basic skills. Giving yourself permission to not know and to find out. Not censoring yourself and telling yourself you can't before you've tried. And being curious. And when you have an idea, explore the idea and chase the tail. So much of this cannot happen by sitting still and thinking about it. If you sit still and keep thinking about it, you're never going to move. And you're likely never going to find out the thing that you're meant to do, the next thing that you're meant to do. Because that's the other key to this, guys. You don't have to find the passion that's going to light you up for the next 25 to 30 to 45 years. You just have to find the passion that lights you up next. I don't know that I'm going to be running my business on choosing happiness and communication 10 years from now, 5 years from now, maybe even 5 months from now, because we get permission to grow and to shift and to pivot and to find out. And sometimes that's the other thing that limits us, is this idea that the next thing we choose is our forever thing, rather than taking the pressure off and just deciding to find out what's next. So much of this comes down to stop censoring yourself. Stop telling yourself you can't. Stop saying all the rules and the conditions for which it would have to happen, and just see what happens if you have a question and you find out the answer. If you have an interest and you schedule in the time that it's going to take you to do it, to find out, to see what happens next. Because sitting and thinking about it is guaranteed to keep you sitting still. Going out, finding, taking action is guaranteed to get you to move. So that's what I've got today, guys, on this Monday. I hope you're having a great day. If you have any questions, certainly pop them in the comment box below. If you'd like to keep the conversation going, I'm going to be sharing this discussion over in my community group at Choose to Have It All. So if you would like to join my group, I'll put that link in the comments as well, and you're welcome to join the group. Thanks so much. Oh, excuse me. What an awful way to wrap up a video. Got something caught in my throat. It's allergy season here in New England. Thanks so much, guys. Have a great day, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.